Good morning. It's 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday, January 31st. This meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. In the unlikely event that we have to abruptly end this hearing due to technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business at a later time.
Okay, you can use ours.
On Friday, February 2nd at 11:05 a.m.
Yeah, AM, right?
a.m. And a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. We will enforce a 1 minute per testifier time limit. So we'll start with the 9:30 a.m. agenda of the committees on housing, followed by the committee on jointly with the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection, and we'll follow that with the 9:35 agenda of the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and the Committee on Housing. So on behalf of the Committee on Housing, we have our Vice Chair, Senator Hashimoto, Senator Keokalole for the Committee on CPN.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, for the Committee on CPN, we have Vice Chair Senator Karen Fukunaga and Member Senator Angus McKelvey.
Okay, our only item on this 9:30 a.m. agenda is Senate Bill 2065 relating to housing, which establishes the Hawaii Residential Developers Loan Corporation and the Hawaii Residential Developers Loan Revolving Fund for the purpose of enhancing credit and guaranteeing and ensuring loans made by private financial institutions to developers of residential housing for Hawaii residents who will be owner occupants and who own no other real property. Authorizes the Director of Finance to issue GO bonds to fund the Hawaii Residential Developers Loan Revolving Fund and makes an appropriation. Our first testifier is HHFDC with comments.
Morning, chairs, vice chairs, members, present our comments, supporting the intent, and offer our comments.
Thank you. They stand on their comments. We have the Department of Budget and Finance with comments. Church of the Crossroads in support. Julia Estigoya Kaho'onoi in support. And Ellen Godby Carson in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2065? Okay. Members, do we have any questions? Okay, if not, I have a question for HHFDC. Two questions, actually. So first, would it be better to use the definition of qualified resident in section 201H-32 instead of Hawaii residents who will be owner occupants and own no other real property on page 2, line 16 to 17?
Yes, that would be preferred, as that definition encompasses first-time home buyers who might have a minority interest in property, but not able to own a home.
Thank you. Can you identify yourself for the record, please?
Sorry, Dean Minakami, Executive Director, the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation.
Thank you. As you also know, on the bill, there are blank amounts on page 6, line 17, the maturity date of the revenue bonds, and page 8, lines 13 and 19, the discounted value of an issue. What should those blanks be filled in with?
I'll defer to my Executive Assistant.
Yes, Senator. I'm Craig Hurai, Executive Assistant at the HHFDC. HR Section 39-61, refers to rates, rentals, fees, and charges. Undertakings and loan programs must be self-sustaining, and we weren't exactly sure how to deal with that in this situation because it wasn't clear how any revenue bonds were going to be repaid. So that's a kind of a long answer to your question.
So do we need to change the language?
I'm not sure how a guarantee program will work with revenue bonds because basically, as you know, we need sort of a corpus to reserve to do these guarantees, but it's a guarantee, it's not a loan. So just exactly how, if we were to issue revenue bonds, how they would be repaid is kind of problematic. The GO bond appropriation at the end of the bill is fine. I mean, that creates a corpus, but if we were to issue revenue bonds, I'm not sure how we're going to repay it out of a guarantee program, essentially loan and credit enhancement or loan guarantee program.
Do we need should we just do all GO bonds then instead of revenue bonds?
Well, I think with, you know, if you, I'm not sure what the bond language does for us here with this kind of program, if it's revenue bonds. Like I say, revenue bonds have to be self-sustaining. You need a source of repayment.
So maybe we should just get rid of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Quick question.
Senator McKelvey?
You spurred my interest here. Basically, you know, this kind of looks like a quasi, kind of like a state bank or public lending institution, right? To try to help homeowners with financing, last gap financing, credit enhancement. HGIA does something similar along these lines now. If this, I mean, I guess to assist the chair in facilitating something that would address the issues that you've raised, would it be perhaps an idea to loop in what they're doing under their current programs and give them perhaps more of an ability to do something in this area to help achieve the policy goal?
They operate off of revenue bonds, I believe. And I think the money they collect goes well back to the PUC. But anyway, they are operating off of revenue bonds, and they do have revenue coming in.
But they do have additional streams of revenue that they do because of their quasi-green bank entity that it is. So they have the ability potentially to draw in revenue into this fund that the senator's looking at, right?
Green infrastructure could do that. I think, you know, I think our testimony says we could do this program. HHFDC could do it. I mean, it would save a lot of overhead. I mean, even green infrastructure, I think, has about a handful of employees.
Yeah, they're looking for a commercial bank now, but it just seems to facilitate what, because the policy goal, you know, is definitely something that, you know, is good, right? So, anyway, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I didn't mean to dive in the weeds on everybody.
Just saying, we're the housing finance agency, and it's something we could do.
Would you be able to help us come up with some language to clarify that these are general obligation and not revenue bonds?
I think, well, we can't. You're talking about the language that's in there now is built for revenue bonds. HHF, well, an agency like that couldn't issue GO bonds. It'd have to be issued by BNF.
Okay, but could you help us with language to effectuate that?
Sure, but I think, depends on, yeah, we could do that, but it isn't, it's just like the appropriation language that's already in there in its simplest form. I don't know what else, how else we can deal with it.
Okay. Okay, any further questions? Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the end of this agenda. Let's go into recess and we'll come back for some decision making. Welcome back from our recess. The committees on housing and consumer protection, having conferred, are ready to do some decision making. For Senate Bill 2065, the chair's recommendation will be to pass this measure with amendments. We'll allow both rental and sale to qualified residents as defined in section 201H-32. We'll also have HHFDC administer the purposes of this bill, and then we'll also clarify that the bonds would be general obligation and not revenue bonds. And we'll note in the committee report the revenue bond repayment issue. Any questions or discussion? Okay, if not, so for the Committee on Housing, the recommendation for SB 2065 is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Members, chair recommendations for SB 2065 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Senator Aquino is excused. Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
Senator Awa.
Aye.
Chair with your measures adopted.
Thank you.
For the CPN committee, same recommendation, SB 2065 passing with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator McKelvey.
Aye.
Senator Richards is excused. Senator Owa.
Aye.
Thank you. Measures adopted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and that brings us to the end of this agenda.
Okay, good morning. We are convening this Wednesday, January 31st, 2024, 9:35 a.m. Agenda. This is a joint hearing between the Senate Committees on Commerce and Consumer Protection and Housing to hear SB 2026 relating to deposits of public funds. This measure requires the Director of Finance to consider before the selection of a depository for the state treasury the beneficial effects to the state of using depositories within the state, including but not limited to lending at favorable terms for the creation of certain affordable housing units. First up, we have Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs offering comments. Good morning.
Good morning, chairs and vice chairs and members of the committees. Ronaldo, here on behalf of the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, and we stand on our written testimony, indicating that we refer to the Department of Budget and Finance on this measure, but we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for standing on your testimony. On Zoom, we have the Hawaii Bankers Association offering comments. Or in the room? Do we have them on Zoom?
They're not present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Also submitting written testimony, we have the Department of Budget and Finance offering comments, Gail Breeke and Kendrick Farm in support. Is there anyone else who would like to testify in this measure? Okay, members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, do we need to recess for DM? Chair? Okay,
It's another state bank bill, so I'm not sure.
well then, if it's your pleasure, then we'll move right into decision-making. So the recommendation is to pass this measure out with technical non-substantive amendments and to defect the effective date to July 1, 2030 to allow for further discussion. Any comments? Okay, seeing none, passing with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator McKelvey?
Yes.
Senator Awa?
Aye.
Senator Richards is excused. Measure is adopted.
Thank you.
And for the Committee on Housing, the same recommendation for SB 2026 to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Aquino is excused. Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
Senator Owa.
Aye.
Your measure is adopted, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us on this joint committee between the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and the Committee on Public Safety, Intergovernmental and Military Affairs on this 31st of January at 9:40 in room 229. We are streaming this live across the globe via streaming on YouTube. If we have any kind of technical difficulties, we are going to post notice as to when we are going to reconvene. But thank goodness, over the past couple of years, we've never had that issue come up. But I also wanted to mention that as we take testimony, we are going to have a 2-minute time limitation on individuals who are testifying. We have 5 bills on this morning's agenda, first being Senate Bill 2904 relating to emergency management. First on our testifiers list, we have Christopher Hahn or Brian Yee from the Department of the Attorney General.
Good morning, Deputy Attorney General Christopher Hahn with comments for the bill. We recommend some amendments to deal with potential constitutional challenges, primarily by creating discretion, adding some preemption measures, and adding a preamble. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hahn. Mana Moriarty from DCCA.
Good morning. We appreciate the intent of the bill. In particular, Section I is something we wanted to call to attention, which, as everybody is aware, this bill creates a host of potential new violations of law after an emergency declaration is triggered. The enforcement mechanism is designating these unfair and deceptive acts or practices. This doesn't neatly align with our definitions of unfair or deceptive practices by the courts in the state of Hawaii. And just to illustrate, maybe we'll take the example of summary possession. Summary possession under normal circumstances is authorized for breach of a lease. And it's accomplished by posting notice and giving notice to the tenant. This bill would make it so that is a unfair, deceptive act or practice to engage in to follow through with a summary possession. There's nothing inherently deceptive if a landlord goes to the tenant and provides notice, and everything is clear to the tenant what's happening. Now, we understand that there's policy discretion here to designate this as a violation of law in an emergency situation, but it doesn't neatly align with our typical UDAP enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Moriarty. James Barrows from HOU-CPN.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair. Good morning, Kiele Amundsen, PIO with HOU-CPN. We stand on our written testimony, pending any questions or comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lindsay Garcia from the Realtors.
Thank you, we stand on our comments.
Thank you, Lindsay. Evan Oe from Hawaii Association for Justice has submitted testimony in support. Lahaina Strong, I don't have a name, but if anyone from Lahaina Strong would like to testify. Stephanie Sakamoto from the Credit Union League.
Good morning, Stephanie Sakamoto on behalf of the Hawaii Credit Union League. We submitted testimony in opposition. We have concerns on a long payment deferral. Hawaii credit unions cannot withstand that type of loss over that period of time and will not be able to lend under that risk. Also, we would just want to note that we currently do work with members in times of hardship. So that's something we already do. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Mihoko Ito or Tiffany Yajima.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, and committee members. Mihoko Ito on behalf of the Hawaii Bankers Association. We too have similar concerns regarding the impact of this measure on banks' safety and soundness. They're regularly evaluated on their risk and feel that this measure would cause some concerns overall in trying to, especially given the uncertainties and the fact that emergency proclamations can last for really long times. So for those reasons, we submitted comments but are concerned about the measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mihoko. Tara Paleka from the Hawaii Financial Services Group has submitted testimony in support. Victor Ramos and members of both committees, I have probably about 24 pieces of testimony from individuals all in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2904? If not, members, any questions? Mr. Moriarty? I'm trying to understand your concerns regarding section 127AI, and I think you alluded to it briefly in your statement, but I'm sorry, not a lawyer, so I don't clearly understand what the issue is with that section and how do we cure your concerns in this area?
What I think would recommend would be creating an enforcement mechanism that's not tied to section 480-2. Certainly the idea that these practices become unfair or deceptive doesn't neatly align with the jurisprudence in this area. A practice that is standard business practice, so loan collections, for example, in the context of summary possession, which I alluded to, the fact that it's outlawed afterwards doesn't automatically make it deceptive. And we want to be cognizant of how we use these terms because they are specific terms of art to which the courts have ascribed particular meanings.
So we were to amend the bill and just take out this section 127AI, would that allay all of your trepidation that you just expressed?
I think it would from our sort of narrower view, but from the broader view, you do need an enforcement mechanism if you're going to create violations of law. What we've suggested is you may want a different enforcement mechanism. You may want to create your own set of sort of penalties or civil or criminal penalties if you're going to create new violations of law. That is the best way to enforce against an actor who commits a violation of law.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Moriarty. Members, we're going to move on to the next measure. That is Senate Bill 2908 relating to emergency management. On our testifiers list, we have first up, James Barrows from HOU-CPN. Thank you, Kelly. Lindsay Garcia from the Realtors.
Thank you, we stand on our written testimony, not for comments.
Thank you, Lindsay. I have Lahaina Strong, no individual named. Anybody from Lahaina Strong like to testify? Tara Paleka from the Hawaii Financial Services has submitted testimony in support. And members, we have about another 36 or so individuals all testifying in support of Senate Bill 2908. Is there anyone else with us here or online that would like to testify on Senate Bill 2908? If not, members, any questions? Sorry, I'm moving so quick. I want to just make sure I check my notes before we move on to the next measure. Okay, no, I didn't have questions on this. Okay, we are going to move on to Senate Bill 2977 relating to unlicensed contractors. First on our testifiers list, we have Mana Moriarty from DCCA.
Thank you and good morning again. Strong support for this bill. It's a common sense measure. The potential consumer harms associated with using unlicensed contractors are well documented. Our regulated industries complaints office is very familiar with them. And this bill would close a loophole under existing law. Unlicensed contracting is prohibited and enhanced criminal and civil penalties are provided after a natural disaster, but only when the unlicensed contracting is for performing repairs. We want to make the application of these penalties broader so that reconstruction without a license, without appropriate licensure, is also going to be subject to enhanced criminal and civil penalties. I would point out that we are a civil enforcement agency. We do not have expertise in criminal law. And in terms of an enhanced sentencing statute, we would defer to other criminal law enforcement agencies as to the best way to achieve appropriate criminal penalties.
Thank you, Mr. Moriarty. Candice Ito from the Contractors Licensing Board has submitted commentary.
Good morning,
Oh.
Chair, committee members, Contractors License Board is standing on their written testimony with time.
Thank you, Candice. James Barrows from HOU-CPN
So yes, we stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
in support.
In support, yes.
Tim Lyons from the Contractors Association. Subcontractors, not the contractors, substituting.
Thank you, co-chairs and committee members. The Subcontractors Association also supports this bill. You know, the legislature provided a framework for the licensing of contractors because of all of the complaints and the issues. And most homeowners are really not very familiar with that construction process. So they're easily fooled into things. Unfortunately, when they need repairs, they sometimes make quick decisions, which don't necessarily turn out very well. So there's a lot of reasons to use a licensed contractor, such as RICO, which was mentioned. There's also a Contractors Repair Act. There's a disclosure of lien rights. The contract must be in writing. It has to specify who all the subcontractors are. So there's a number of provisions that are there, but many times they don't take advantage of that. So the establishing a fine, we think will help as a deterrent. So we support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Yvonne Alvarado has submitted testimony in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Members, any questions for those who are here? Okay, we're going to move on to the next measure. That is Senate Bill 2983. 3, which is relating to solicitation of funds from the public. First on our testifiers list, we have Christy Cruz Chang from the Department of the Attorney General.
Good morning, chairs and vice chairs and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. The department supports the intent of the bill, but as we indicated in our testimony that as the wildfire showed us that we do need to improve and expand our enforcement and regulation in this area, not only on charitable fundraising on internet platforms during an emergency, but also when there isn't an emergency. The language in this bill appears to come from the California Assembly Bill 488, which doesn't synthesize correctly with our law, and we've asked additional time to work with the legislatures and the committee to formulate a comprehensive law that covers this area for the department. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you for joining us, Christy. James Barros and Haima. Kelly?
Thank you. We'd like to start on our written testimony to support this measure.
Thank you. Lisa Moriyama from Hawaii Alliance of Nonprofit Organizations.
Hi, good morning, chairs and vice chairs of the committees. Lisa Mariyama, President and CEO of HANO, Hawaii Alliance of Nonprofit Organizations. And I just want to offer some further thoughts off of my written comments. I think I agree with the representative from the Attorney General's office that there is a statute that actually provides the ability for reporting, transparency. We understand that we're trying to root out fraudulent behavior. We're trying to root out bad actors that might be taking advantage of fundraising capabilities in the time of an emergency or a disaster, et cetera. We are a little concerned that there is existing statute that's pretty robust around the reporting requirements for things like co-venturing between a for-profit and a nonprofit that might, together raise money for a certain cause. So we feel like the existing statute is pretty robust. We do understand that in the time of a crisis, there is a need for greater transparency because, a lot of money might be flowing through an entity. We do wonder, though, HANO itself did not, for instance, in the Maui fires, experience, we did not play a role of being a fundraising entity on behalf of others, but we do understand the plight of other entities that did play that role. And, for instance, reporting on a monthly basis on those transactions in the middle of a disaster is a little bit challenging. And so we can see that this might be a little hard to meet some of these deadlines. And, acknowledging that a law that is designed to kind of root out the few, but really negatively might impact the many that are actually trying to do good in times of a disaster, might be counterintuitive, I guess. So we do agree with the Attorney General that we would love to work on language together to see if something can be applicable and meet everybody's needs. So thank you for the opportunity to add further thoughts to my testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Yvonne Alvarado has submitted testimony in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2983? Members' questions? Senator McKelvey?
I have a question for HANO. Because I was listening to the Attorney General's testimony, and I didn't hear that. What I heard was that we're trying to adopt existing California law. It needs to be synthesized with Hawaii law. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were supportive of the endeavor in trying to do that from your Office for Greater Enforcement, right? Yeah, thank you. That's what they said. So it exists in California, yet charities are able to operate in California. Why would this all of a sudden upend the nonprofit universe? It hasn't happened in California.
I'm not familiar with California law, so I would be open to understanding the impacts of that. I think currently, as we are comparing proposed law with existing Hawaii law, that's really what I was discussing is I think there is some duplication actually to the existing law in this proposed language.
Well, so they need to synthesize it.
Right.
But I'm trying to make sure clarity that what happens in California, I mean, we had an inordinate amount of nonprofits suddenly appear in August, okay? I mean, you've seen the stories in media, I don't need to belabor the point, but I think that's what the policy aim is, at least, for us, is to take the experiences what other states have done. So we appreciate, I'm working with you on those duplication concerns, but I mean, it seems to be a good direction to try to go into to give.
I'm not opposed to the direction, just, thinking that it would be good to figure out what the impacts would be to most nonprofits as a result. And also, the point being, we could be looking also at enforcement, and I think the Attorney General's office did talk about the ability to ramp up the enforcement. We are not opposed to that at all, and actually, we would love to partner with the Attorney General's office to provide education, because oftentimes people don't understand what the law is, and so, or what the reporting requirements would be. And so you have well-intentioned endeavors that might be seen as fraudulent because people just don't understand what the law is. So we're happy to play a role in making sure that education happens.
Well, I think it's important to take a stronger position because fraudulent fundraising, mysterious pop-up fundraising, erodes donation in the future.
I would argue that the existing Co-Venturing Act captures some of that around for-profit entities that are actually positioning themselves to fundraise, that alleging that proceeds will go to a cause or to a nonprofit without any knowledge by that nonprofit. But that sort of isn't in our jurisdiction from where HOU sits. I know there's a regulatory effort for that. So we're talking about the ability of nonprofits to be able to comply in the middle of a disaster around these efforts. And not opposed to what you're saying either, just wanting to find the common ground that would be, I guess, practical in the middle of a disaster for many nonprofits that are on the ground actually providing the immediate crisis response.
Agree with you on that.
Okay.
Thank you, chairs, for indulging me.
Oh, of course. Any other questions? I have questions for the AG. So, Christy, in your testimony, you list 3 specific areas where you have concerns. First one being the trustee for charitable purposes, classification that apparently we don't have in current law.
Yes.
Do you have any suggested changes? Because I'd like to pass this measure on, but wanted to try and clean up as much as we can before I give it to my friends over in the Judiciary Committee. But is there any language you can help me with to really address the 3 points that you bring up in your testimony?
Yes, Senator. Actually, what we did was give examples of where we would need to start working on synthesizing, because when you change that language, it's throughout the entire, and I know you want to pass it, and we really want to help to be able to move that along. And so it would require us to go line by line and say, okay, change this part because then it affects this other area. Even, for instance, when we talk about removing the consent requirement on number 3, that's contrary to what our statute actually requires consent by the charity if you're going to fundraise on behalf of that. So that's why in our testimony, we indicated it just would need a lot more time in the period that we were given initially.
Okay, so if we move this bill out, you can work with our friends in the Judiciary Committee to do the painstaking line-by-line suggested amendments.
Yes, we will do our best.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Christy. Members, any further questions? If not, we're going to move on to the last bill on this agenda. That is Senate Bill 2843 relating to emergency management. First up, James Barrows and Haima.
Sir, we would like to reaffirm our written testimony in support of this bill.
Great, thank you, Kelly. Lindsay Garcia from the Realtors.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committees. My name is Lindsay Garcia from Hawaii Realtors. We are in strong support of this measure. We believe that it brings some needed transparency for both consumers and businesses. So we respectfully request that you please pass this bill out as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Randy Pereira from HGEA has submitted testimony in support. Tina Yamaki from the Retail Merchants Association has submitted testimony in support. Victor Ramos, Yvonne Alvarado, both individuals are in support. Ted Kafalis from Grassroots Institute has submitted a commentary. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2843? If not, members, any questions for Lindsay?
Yeah,
or Haima?
well,
No.
Okay, yeah, I have a question for the realtors.
Aloha, Chair.
Aloha, good morning, Lindsay. It wasn't immediately clear to me what you were alluding to in your testimony in SB 2908 earlier on the agenda, that you preferred this measure to that measure, that other than that measure expands the governor's power and this one curtails it. Could you clarify, please?
Yes, well, we believe the intent of the previous measure, SB 2908, is to, sorry, I need to look at that other,
Right,
that other
yeah,
one.
sorry.
It's a rent increase.
It's the rent
Yes, the rent
control
increase,
bill.
yes, exactly, my apologies. So when it comes to any of these measures, right, that deal with emergency powers, we definitely appreciate the intent of all of them and the need to provide further clarity for the community when it comes to rent increases, what does that mean, when does it apply? We're merely stating that we prefer this vehicle just because it actually applies, this would affect the wider business community when it comes to price freezing, which is like how the statute is arranged currently.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions? Yes, Senator Rhodes.
I don't think anybody from the AG is here, is that correct?
Not for this measure. Christy, can you speak on?
It's a real black letter law question, because there's a provision in here that says that the statute has to comply with the Constitution, but do we have a choice? I mean, I guess if you're Texas or Donald Trump, you don't have to abide by the Constitution, but other than that, most of us mere mortals have to. Isn't that correct?
I need to really look at that bill, because
Okay.
it's taken out of context, so unfortunately I can get back to you.
No, that's all right, that's fine. It's coming to judiciary next, we'll look at it, but I don't think it's necessary. Same effect. Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, members, we're going to take a brief recess prior to taking the vote. Thank you for your patience. We're reconvening the Joint Committees on Commerce and Consumer Protection and the Committee on Public Safety, Intergovernmental and Military Affairs for vote taking. On the first measure, Senate Bill 2904, relating to emergency management. The two chairs have conferred, and we'd like to pass this measure out with one amendment, that being what DCCA brought up about the problems with the section 127AI, and would like to remove that section out, as well as to make non-substantive technical amendments to the measure. Oh, yeah, you're right. And also the AG's amendments, which had clarifying language, just want to encapsulate it, about adding wording for each section that, quote, the governor or mayor may declare the restriction. And it cites throughout their testimony as to where we're going to put that language in there. But thank you, Co-Chair, for pointing that out. So AG's amendments, as well as DCCA's amendments, as well as technical non-substantive amendments to this measure. Members, both committees, any discussion? If not, Senator Elefante, I vote yes.
Chair's recommendations to pass SB 2904 with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Fukunaga.
Aye.
Senator Rhodes.
Aye.
Senator Awa.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, recommendations adopted.
CPN Committee, same recommendation, SB 2904, passing with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator McKelvey?
Yes.
Senator Richards is excused. Senator Awa?
Aye.
Thank you. Measures adopted.
Okay, we're going to go on to the next measure, Senate Bill 2908. This is the rent control after a natural or any kind of a disaster declaration. We'd like to move this measure out and just defect the date. It'll take effect for now on January 1st, 2042. Members, any discussion? If not, Senator Elafante, I vote yes.
Chair's recommendation is to pass SB 2908 with amendments of the 5 members present on PSM. Any no votes or votes with reservations? Hearing none, recommendation is adopted.
And for the CPN committee, same recommendation, SB 2908, passing with amendments.
Thank
Chair
you.
votes aye.
Thank you, Chair. Of the CPN members present, are there any voting with reservations or with objections? Hearing none, measures adopted.
Members on Senate Bill 2977 relating to unlicensed contractors. All the testimony has been in support, and we want to protect our neighbors from any kind of fraudulent unlicensed contractors. So the chairs have conferred, and the recommendation is to pass this measure out as is. Any discussion? If not, Senator Elafante, I vote yes.
Chair's recommendation is to pass SB 2977 as is of the 5 members present on PSM. Any no votes or votes with reservations? Hearing none, recommendation is adopted.
CPN committee, same recommendation, passing unamended. Chair votes aye.
Thank you, Chair. Of the members present, are there any voting with reservations or objections? Hearing none, measures adopted.
Thank you, members. We're going to go to the next measure. That is Senate Bill 2983 relating to solicitation of funds from the public. The chairs have conferred. We'd like to make 2 tiny amendments, 1 technical, non-substantive amendments, as well as defective date to January 1st, 2042. Members, any questions or discussion? If not, Senator Elafante, I vote yes.
Chair's recommendation is to pass SB 2983 with amendments of the members present on PSM. Any no votes or votes with reservations? Hearing none, recommendation is adopted.
CPN committee, same recommendation, passing with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Thank you. Of the members present, are there any voting with reservations or objections? Hearing none, measure is adopted.
Thank you, members. We're on to our last measure on this agenda. That is Senate Bill 2843 relating to emergency management. We'd like to make 1 amendment to this bill, and that is to take in HGEA's suggested amendment, which is to authorize the legislature to terminate or extend a state of emergency after 60 days by an affirmative 2/3 vote in both chambers. That's the suggested amendment. Any discussion? If not, Senator Elafante, I vote yes.
Chair's recommendation is to pass SB 2843 with amendments of the members present on PSM. Any no votes or votes with reservations? Hearing none, recommendation is adopted.
CPN committee, same recommendation, passing with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Thank you. Of the CPN members present, are there any voting with reservations or objections? Hearing none, measures adopted.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Good morning and welcome to this Hawaii State Senate Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection. This is our Wednesday, January 31st, 2024, 9:50 a.m. agenda in Conference Room 229 of the State Capitol. Seeing as how this is the first CPN committee hearing, lone CPN committee hearing for the year, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to do a couple of announcements since we're being streamed live. I'm Senator Jared Keohokalole, chair of the committee, joined by presently by Vice Chair Senator Carol Fukunaga and members Senator Angus McKelvey and Senator Brenton Awa. Also on the committee is Senator Tim Richards, who is not with us at the moment. This meeting is being streamed live on YouTube, and in the unlikely event that we need to abruptly end this hearing due to technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business on Friday, February 2nd at 11:05 a.m. And a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. As is our committee practice, if you are testifying remotely, your audio will be muted and video disabled until shortly before it is your turn to testify. In order to accommodate all of the members of the public who may want to testify in these 90-minute proceedings, it is the CPN committee's protocol to allow 2 minutes for you to share your testimony. We have your written testimony and I've reviewed all of it. If you'd like to use your time to clarify or further explain your written remarks, I would respectfully recommend that over reading your written testimony word for word, since we've already viewed it. And it's posted for the record. If there are glitches during your turn, we'll try and come back to you. A note again that this is the 2024 legislative session, and this committee is piloting a new set of notice procedures. We will be noticing bills on our CPN agenda 96 hours, which is 4 days before the scheduled hearing. And it is our request that written testimony be submitted 48 hours before the hearing, in which case it will be considered timely. And also to aid in transparency in operation of the committee, timely testimony will be posted on the legislature's website 24 hours prior to the hearing. You are still allowed to testify and submit written comments all the way up to the hearing, the opening of the hearing. But these are our pilot procedures that we're going to try out this year, just to make things a little smoother for everyone. On that note, we'll move into our agenda. The first measure is SB 2227 relating to emergency management. This measure authorizes the governor to suspend the mortgage foreclosure provisions of Chapter 667 HRS for properties having substantial damage resulting from a governor-declared state of emergency. First up, we have Lahaina Strong in support. Are they on Zoom?
They're not present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We have the Hawaii Bankers Association offering comments. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Chair and members of the committee. Mihoko Ito on behalf of the Hawaii Bankers Association. Similar to the prior measure, we have some concerns about the impact this would have on tightening credit markets, just because, you know, these, you put a policy like this in place and it in turn impacts, you know, the way banks are evaluated, which in turn, and in their own internal processes can also impact how much they're willing to lend. Because of, you know, it's a very delicate balance, we would recommend that more discussion be had on this before implementing something so broad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have for Hawaii Financial Services LLC, Teralyn Ha'aheo Honua Paleka in support.
Yes, hi, I'm
morning.
in support of this. Good morning. I apologize, I have not testified in years, so I'm a little nervous, but I am definitely in support of this. As being a small business owner in Lahaina, lost everything, and I financed hundreds of families in Lahaina for their mortgages and their homes in the 32 years in business. I am constantly being called daily asking for help because of threats of foreclosure. And it is my understanding that Paradise, they were able to enact a blanket 3-year moratorium. So possibly you folks could find out how that worked. But you know, with everything that has happened and all of the devastation, as well as losing everything and the shuffling of families, that I just financed someone who moved 10 times before they were able to procure a new home using their insurance money, which that is not what their insurance money is for. Their insurance money is to rebuild. And we know this is going to be a long process, but it is terrible for people's mental health to constantly be having to try and figure out their next move because of threats of foreclosure, because of threats of them having to modify their mortgage, which as to be able to modify their mortgage, they have to be late before affecting their credit. So when they go to try and finance something, their credit is already devastated. But I am in support of this, and we don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, as Paradise has already shown that they were able to create a program for their fire victims. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate being able to be here today.
Thank you very much. Next online, we have DeAndre Makakoa in support.
They're not present on Zoom, Chair.
Also registered to testify on Zoom, I see Shannon E.E., Katie Austin, Leonard Nakoa, and Autumn Ness. Is anyone online?
They're not online, Chair.
Okay, is there anyone else in the room or online that would like to testify on this measure? Oh, please.
Sorry, Chair, I did submit a written testimony, but we'll check again.
Yeah, thank you.
Stephanie Sakamoto on behalf of the Hawaii Credit Union League. We have similar concerns as to SB 2904. We have concerns on such a long payment deferral for mortgages for the safety and soundness of our credit unions. Also, we have concerns with the lack of clarity in the term substantial damage. If that is the trigger, we would like to see that further defined. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Okay, members, questions? Senator Owa.
Is anybody who took part in writing this bill in the room? No? Do we know where this thing came from?
I think he just stepped out, actually.
Who? Can we get him back in? Can I open
As
the door
soon as
and
the
get him back
senator
in?
returns, I'll ask a
Oh,
question and
Angus
maybe
Rother?
we can buy him some time. I believe this is Angus's bill.
Wait, this is the one coming from?
Oh, no, it's the Hawaii State Association of Counties. That's right.
Okay.
I don't believe we have
I guess
testimony from the
question
counties.
to you then?
If you'd like to pose the question, well, why don't we ask the Bankers Association? Because I have a question for them anyway.
Well, mine wouldn't be to them. It would be this bill. I mean, it looks good, like from the headline, but inside it's random. It's section 1, starting line 7. Provide for and require quarantine or segregation of persons who are affected with or believed to have been exposed to any infectious, communicable, or other disease that is, in the governor's opinion, dangerous to public health. What is this?
In section 1 of the measure now.
Yeah.
So that provision already exists in the statute. So the proposed language in the measure is underlined.
Oh, that's already in there.
Yeah.
That's not an added.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Mihoko, good morning.
Morning.
So, okay. Where are my notes? So currently, from what I was able to decipher online, typically forbearance periods for mortgages are 6, perhaps as long as 12 months. Is that accurate?
I think so. I mean, I can tell you that banks, generally speaking, see foreclosure as a measure of last resort because it's not in their interest to have to spend the money to foreclose, upkeep properties. And so, you know, their preference is to try to do workouts, right? And regularly they do that. I can get back to you on this.
Well,
on
so
your specific
because
question.
I do understand the association's concerns about limiting the ability of banks to collect on debt and how that could potentially hurt not just the banks, but potentially borrowers
Ultimately
in the
consumers.
state if we're gonna put this in the statute,
Right.
sure. But as you just alluded to, a foreclosure cliff also hurts everyone. And so right now, it's looking like the Maui rebuild could take upwards of 3 years or more. And with a forbearance period of maybe 12 months on the long side, you know, I'm wondering if there is a shorter duration than 3 years that lending institutions might be willing to live with, or is it just a concern about having a foreclosure suspension at all?
Well, I'd have to take that back to the Bankers Association to really discuss, because I think, you know, like I said earlier, it's fragile, right? And what that point is, that is a reasonable workout. I do think that even, though you've mentioned 6 to 12 month workouts, there are ones that go longer than that as well. So I think it'd be helpful if we talk to, you know, the lenders as a whole and kind of get their view on what's happening specific to Lahaina and how they're handling those properties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the question was that in light of the expiration of the federal funding, which I believe is probably going to be no longer than 18 months. Yeah, so if we have a rebuild period that's multiple years, then you could have a situation where homeowners are paying rent and
Right.
and mortgages and construction costs.
And ALE runs out too.
Right.
And we're certainly open to the discussion, and I'm happy to take that back to
Sure.
the members.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Senator McKelvey?
Sure.
Big thing, I mean, if it seems to be the theme of the day, I mean, if there was an entity that would buy the notes, Lahaina notes from your members, from your banks, would that be something? Because clearly there's a situation where people are not able to do this. okay? You're entering a concessionary lending environment out of necessity. I think that's the thing. That's why I put in the bills for, you know, and these other bills that are hearing are to enable that fact. So if that were to be stood up, would you be willing to relinquish the notes for the people either in the burn area or within the 4D2 area or something to that effect, so that there'd be an entity that could work with the homeowners and give them the kind of breathing room that is a necessity, which is why California did what they did.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're certainly willing to discuss. I mean, I think one important aspect of many of the local mortgages that's important to keep in mind too is that they get bundled, right? And sold. So lenders keep a certain number of those within their own portfolios, and then some of them get bundled, right? And transferred elsewhere. So there's a lot. It's complicated, even with respect to the ones, you know, to what you're talking about, because it wouldn't just be, you know, necessarily the local banks that could help to inform that situation and whether or not they'd be willing to.
Well, my hope is like we did this before with Act 48, is it will motivate the banks to be more flexible. And because obviously it's better to work something out than at that point, because you can't proceed with foreclosure. So, I mean, we've been down this before to save homeowners locally, and now it's even more desperate of a situation.
Yeah, and I'm happy to take this offline and have further discussion about what we can work out.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other questions, then we'll move on. The next measure is SB 2728 relating to appraisal management companies. This measure reestablishes the appraisal management company registration program within the DCCA to conform with the minimum standards of appraisal management companies' final rule and federal Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. First up, we have Hawaii Realtors in support. I believe they just stepped. Oh, please proceed. Oh, that's not the Realtors? Okay. Stephanie, Hawaii Credit Union League in support. Thank you for standing on your comments in support. Next up, we have DCCA offering comments. Shelley Choi? Is that you? I can't see your name in the...
That's her, but it's no by
You're on mute. If you can unmute and please proceed.
Shelley Choi, DCCA. I'd like to stand on my written testimony offering comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Mark Schiffman for the Real Estate Valuation Advocacy Association in support. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I am Mark Schiffman. I represent the Real Estate Valuation Advocacy Association, better known as REVA. We are a trade association that represents appraisal management companies across the country. Our members were licensed in Hawaii beginning in 2018 and did so through 2023. REVA was a part of the group that put together the initial licensing, and so we're very supportive of reestablishing that program under DCCA. Since learning of the sunset, we've worked collaboratively with the HFSA and lenders and DCCA and the appraisers and others to try to bring everybody forward to reestablish what had originally been in place. Hawaii's program was rated excellent in terms of the licensing program by its federal regulator. So it was really running well. So our folks are just working to reestablish and to work with the DCCA and others to make that happen in the most expedient time available. So we are strong supporters of this bill. We are strong supporters of the amendments that are proposed by the HFSA, and Marvin will touch on those in his testimony. So we appreciate your time and appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Marvin Dang for the Hawaii Financial Services Association in support.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Marvin Dang for the Hawaii Financial Services Association, HFSA. We strongly support this bill. I want to draw your attention to page 3 of my testimony, in which we offer 3 proposed amendments. Let me talk about the third amendment. The third amendment really gets down to when this program, the AMC registration program, can be reestablished exactly like it had been for the past 6 years, when the AMCs can be re-registered. This bill has a January 1st, 2025 date. That's because it was drafted to replicate the bill from 6 years ago. At that time, it had a January 1st, 2018 date when the bill was enacted. But that's because the program had to be created from scratch. And a lot of things had not been in place, unlike now, where we have the experience, we have the program, we have the staffing in DCCA. And what we're suggesting is not a January 1st date, but perhaps a sooner date, a quicker date under the circumstances of September 30th, 2024, which would be about 3 months. And keep in mind, with the sunset last year in June, this coming June will be 1 year without AMCs in Hawaii being able to do their work. September would be 15 months. I don't think we should wait 18 months to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Hawaii Bankers Association in support. That's all the submitted testimony from individuals who indicated they would be present. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions?
Quick question. Oh, sorry.
Vice Chair.
I guess for DCCA, let's see, the testimony from the department had raised some concerns on timing, and I wanted to ask, whether or not we could work with the department as well as the industry representatives and Hawaii Financial Services Association to come up with a timely date of restarting this registration, since the availability of financing in this kind of critical time period, really we cannot afford to be waiting another X number of months to the end of the year. So Ms. Choi, do you have any comments in response to the Hawaii Financial Services Association amendments?
I haven't had a chance to review the amendments in detail, but just very topically, we would be generally, our main concern is that there not be a retroactive effective date, because that creates administrative issues for our program management. But as long as the date is not retroactive, I can't say for sure, but generally that would be workable.
Okay, perhaps we can work with the department and the industry representatives, to come up with an earlier date, because as I understand that the expiration occurred at a time when those who were otherwise covered by the registration had already paid fees for, that year. And so in effect, half a year was lost. And, when you think of all of the moving parts that it would take to have to refund some of their fees and then restart and go through this whole process again, it seems that we should be looking for ways to really shorten the process, get this level of financing alternatives back on track, and then look to see how we can make these services available as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Just to follow up, Ms. Choi, can you clarify what those administrative concerns are? The retroactivity provision is the question.
Sure. So some of the concerns would be licensees currently have to maintain, they have to at all times maintain a bond and certain criminal history records checks. So if we made it retroactively effective, there would be a 6-month period during which we do not know if they actually complied with the law, because we wouldn't have been able to enforce whether or not they maintain the bond or maintain the criminal history record checks that are required to be licensed.
Okay, and Senator McKelvey?
Oh, is Marvin still on, or is he gone? I guess
I'm still here.
Okay, no, I just want you to kind of weigh in on that. response insofar as, the licensees may not be in compliance anymore, therefore they need this out date instead of trying to make it upon approval or some kind of, what would your response be to that insofar as getting it reestablished ASAP?
For this particular bill, we don't have a retroactive provision. We're not suggesting that there be a retroactive provision. That is not on the table. We withdrew in terms of the discussions, there is another bill, a companion bill that has a retroactive provision. This one does not. We are not at this time supporting retroactivity. So when I'm suggesting September 30th of this year, that is without retroactive provisions. So we think it is doable. We think without that issue that DCCA has some concerns about, without that being on the table, certainly 3 months to redo this whole program, mirror what was successful, and get the 77 or so AMCs licensed again after a background check and after providing a bond, which they would have, since all of them except one are national in company, and so they already would have a bond. It seems rather simplistic, I think, but at the same time, it would help the consumers the quicker we can get this done.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next measure on the agenda, which is SB 2762 relating to rent control. This measure prohibits a landlord from renting or leasing or offering to rent or lease a dwelling unit at a rate that exceeds the rate for which the dwelling unit was rented or leased or offered on the measure's effective date. And it applies to any county having a population greater than 120,000, but less than 180,000. Sunsets December 31st, 2025. First up, we have the Attorney General's office offering comments. Morning.
Good morning again. Deputy AG Chris Hahn with comments. We recommend amending the bill by inserting some exceptions, a preamble, and inserting the bill into an existing HRS chapter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Hawai'i Realtors offering comments. Hawai'i Financial Services LLC in support. Ms. Paleka, do we have her on Zoom?
Yes, I just stand on
Good
my written testimony. Good morning. I stand on my written testimony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Lahaina Strong in support. DeAndre Makakoa, Kate Austin, Shannon E.E., Leonard Nakoa, we're all registered on Zoom. And Daintry Bartoldes from the State Council on Developmental Disabilities in support.
Council stands on his testimony.
Thank you for standing on your testimony. Good morning. That's all I'd like to note, I've been forgetting to do this, but we have in total 76 individuals who submitted testimony in support in the written record, 2 in opposition. Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Okay, seeing none, members, any questions? Okay. Senator McKelvey?
AG, where would you in the HRS put it, 127A or?
We've suggested HRS 521 since that's the residential landlord tenant.
Okay, all right, that's it.
Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, if not, we will recess for decision-making. Okay, welcome back. We are here back again for decision making on this Wednesday, January 31st, 2024, 9:50 a.m. agenda. The first measure is SB 2227 relating to emergency management. The recommendation on this measure is to pass with amendments. There are some technical, non-substantive amendments. We'd like to defect the effective date to July 1, 2040. And also, we're going to blank out the suspension period from 3 years to blank to foster some further discussion. Any members, any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, passing with amendments, Chair votes aye.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator McKelvey?
Yes.
Senator Richards is excused. Senator Awa?
Aye.
Thank you. Measures adopted.
Thank you very much. The next measure is SB 2728. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. We will adopt the recommended amendments of the HFSA and the REVAA, which are noted in the testimony, to speed up the implementation of the measure. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, passing with amendments, Chair votes aye.
Thank you. Of the members present, are there any voting in with objections or reservations? Hearing none, measures adopted.
Thank you very much. Last measure on the agenda is SB 2762 relating to rent control. The recommendation is to pass this measure with amendments. We will adopt the proposed amendments from the Attorney General's office. We also have some friendly amendments requested by the introducer and Senator McKelvey. If you'd like to.
Yeah, we just like to have put in the bill to have the base rent established by the county council and the mayor. I talked about it with the community and they're in concurrence with that amendment. So I just wanted to echo support for it. That's all.
Okay, we will also add, we will amend the provision on the sunset date and make it 5 years upon the enactment of the bill, and defect the effective date of the measure to July 1, 2030. Any discussion? Seeing none, passing with amendments, Chair votes aye.
Thank you, Chair. Of the members present, are there any voting with reservations or objections? Hearing none, measures adopted.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.